always a challenge to hold the session immediately after lunch. I'll try and keep it as interactive as possible and perhaps involve you in some of the small examples that I will probably provide, and that may help you all grasp the importance of customer validation. Before that, just a short introduction. I handle corporate strategy and analytics at Matrimony.com. Matrimony.com handles popular brands such as Bharat Matrimony, Tamil Matrimony, and so on. We have about 10,000 registrations a day. 1,500 people are married off a day. At any given point of time, about 4 million people are searching on our sites. We marry a lot of people off, and it's internet business. It started about 15 years ago. Before this, I was a professor of marketing at Liba, and previous to that, I was heading Siemens, Power Transmission and Systems Division. So that was the distant past. So coming back to customer validation, the way I would probably take you through is probably get you into 4 sections. What is customer validation briefly, and then probably take you through to why customer validation is so difficult, and probably the 3rd section would be how to do customer validation, the process. I'll leave you open for a discussion for about 15 minutes. At the end of it, I think we are starting at 2. I'm supposed to wind up at 3:15. I'll close probably even at about 2:50 or 2:55 to field questions for about 15 to 20 minutes. That's probably the idea. Now, customer validation you could do in probably 3 very important areas. Probably you should do customer validation everywhere. Customer validation is nothing else but getting a yes from your customers for all that you do in your business. Simplest definition is having a yes for whatever you want to do in your business. For example, is a product worthy of customers buying? Yes, that is product validation. The business model, the way I think I'm going to run this business, is this the way the customer also intends to engage with us? That is business model validation. Is my marketing process, the way I think I'm going to communicate the message or the medium of message and so on and so forth, is that customer validation? Yes, that is also customer validation when the customer says, yes, this is exactly what I expect to hear from you, and so on and so forth. In short, whatever is your key business process, whether it's product, whether it's marketing, or whether it is the business model, which when the customer says, yes, go ahead, this is exactly what I want, that is customer validation. Easier said than done. Okay, and most of us think that, so what? It's so easy, right? I just need to go and ask. But the point is, there are several problems that you'll find why it will be so difficult to ask and why many of us don't ask, right? So that's probably the sections that I would rather want to go on. Just to give you the perils of not taking customer validation. The perils. 95% of new products launched fail. How many of you know that? Super. That means I'm making an impression. So you could be probably part of that 95 because you have not heard that, right? The first most important point, 95% of new products introduced fail in the market. This is a startling research across the globe year after year. This has repeatedly come up again and again and again. Why would new products fail? Any answer? They have not validated with the customer. Simple as that. The customer validation is absent. Most often, the fundamental primary reason why a product fails in the market is because there is no customer validation. The customer hasn't said, yes, I'm going to buy this, right? That's the first point. 97% of new business models fail. Now when I say new business model, wow, what does that mean? Okay, A new business model probably I could say is a new way of delivering a service. Okay, a new way of getting a revenue. Okay, a new customer choice. Okay, those are all new business models. For instance, the traditional model of retailing is going and buying your products at the Kirana store, right? A new business model is offering a marketplace on the net, which is your Flipkarts and your Snapdeals and so on and so forth. That's a new business model. Here is a take for you. 97% of new business models fail. You'll be wondering, how is it possible? I was just speaking to a gentleman here and I just heard a new business model. Now, here is my gentleman friend who says, I am into Dial for Jobs. May I? Dial for Jobs. Dial for Jobs is marrying between internet, okay, that is Naukri, and Just Dial. That means all you need to do is wait, people will call, say I want a job, and he would have a list of jobs and the jobs are done, okay, and the jobs fly into his SMS just like Just Dial, and he will call up and probably get a job. This is the model. Now this is not Naukri, this is not Just Dial, this is a new business model, right? And he is hoping to make money out of it. That's why he's an entrepreneur. This model requires customer validation. This is an important part of customer validation. Now this is another point that you must understand, that he must understand, that okay, here is my case, I need to go out and actually look at customer validation for this business model. Exactly the same thing, for example, with marketing. I hope to reach my members through this awareness idea, this text, this copy, this is what I want to tell my consumers, and this is how I'm going to say it. This medium, this magazine, this TV, this internet, that, whatever. Okay, you have 10 choices in marketing, right? Most entrepreneurs make mistakes here too, right? This is, I always remember Sheikh Mullah Nasruddin story, right? So he is searching for something in the dead of the night under a light, okay? And everyone is searching along. Oh, after some time the guy asked, one of the guys, what are you searching, Mullaji? He says, look, I have dropped a coin and I'm searching for it. Okay, search and then it's still not available. The guy says, are you sure you dropped it here? He says, no, I dropped it there, but its light is only here. So I'm searching for it here. Most marketing actions in entrepreneurship is like this. Where the customer is watching TV, you are advertising in web, right? The most customers are hearing radio and we are advertising in TV. So this kind of issues of medium choices or message choices are often issues that we need to get it validated early on, right? So what I'm trying to in short say is this: most important decisions of your entrepreneurship, be it product, be it your business model, be it your marketing, whatever it is, take it and have it validated with a customer. That means essentially choosing a set of customers and asking them, does it make sense? Is this what you want me to do? And that's exactly what you have to do. And I will come to the process of all those things a little while later. Now you keep asking why these things are again and again important. I say this with some trepidation, right? And there are few things, the biases, thought processes. I will take you through some of the common biases that all of us human beings possess. I'm not saying this is only peculiar with entrepreneurs. This is true of most human beings. And I will sort of detail, and I'm going to take a lot of time detailing this, because most often the issues in customer validation is not the knowledge of the process. Because if you Google the process, you will get hundreds of methods of doing customer validation. You could just pick one good method of doing it, probably hire someone to get it done. Voila, it's done. It's just a matter of interpreting the results and going on with it. The method or the process is not as difficult as understanding inside your head what are all the things that go inside your mind, which makes even taking a step towards customer validation difficult. Okay, probably I'll spend some time on that. The first and the most important problem is what is Theodore Levitt said in 1972, marketing myopia. He talks about this famous problem where he says, usually entrepreneurs create a product and try and find customers for it, right? Without actually going the other way around, understanding the need and then creating a product for it. Now, it may sound very easy. Let me give an example of what he also meant. Another, probably this example will help us all understand this better. One of the famous lines of Theodore Levitt is this: a customer never buys a drilling machine. He buys a quarter-inch hole, right? He buys a quarter-inch hole, not the drilling machine, right? And the day there is another product that satisfies the quarter-inch hole better, he's going to move away from drilling machine. But most of us entrepreneurs think that it's a drilling machine that we sell. No, actually the customer is buying what? A quarter-inch hole. The inability of entrepreneurs to understand what is the need and getting focused on product often is the first and a very big mistake that many people make. The second mistake usually is about technological triumphs, right? Anything that we think is technologically correct and triumph is also going to be a commercial success. Oh, I got this done and this is going to be so lovely in the market. I'll give you an example. Anybody heard of Newton? Anybody heard of Newton? Yep, what's Newton? Yeah, what's Newton? No, not that. Oh, sorry, I know. This is my mistake. This is my customer validation. That is not what I meant. Newton was probably, some of us entrepreneurs will say it was too early, right? That's how we all satisfy our ego, by saying it was a bad product. Okay. The next thing to saying of product failure is what? We're too early. And the other thing is we're too late. Okay. We can satisfy any which way. The damn product is a bomb in the market. Right? It just exploded, imploded, whichever way we want to call it. That's just a bad thing. Why? Because the technological triumph at that point in time, everybody thought it was going to be a commercial success. But that's not true. Look at Segway. Anybody knows what a Segway is? Yes. Yes. Amazing, right? It's just like a cycle with not straight line wheels, but one by the side. You just stand on it and move. Where do you move? Okay, it was a technical marvel, right? You just have two wheels like this and you stand on it and you move. And I always thought, and it was touted as not was a technological marvel, but also said that it's going to be a great commercial success. In nations where there are huge population, heavy traffic, this is the vehicle. We all said that. And when this product came across to me, the first question I asked was, oh, isn't it? How does this work? On a platform in India, just imagine using it. There's first of all no platform. If there is a platform, there are a million people. How does this move? Okay? Oh no, it is not meant to move on a platform, but it's expected to move on the road. Oh, is that so? Does it mean to say it's going to hit some top speeds like 70 kilometers per hour? Why? Because if you don't, the auto guy at the back is going to bump you, right? Because he's in a breakneck speed. So it's neither a product meant for the roads, nor is it a product meant for the platform, but technological marvel. Amazing product, right? That's exactly where we lose out on thinking that whatever is technically a triumph, it's going to be a commercial triumph. There are always cognitive alternatives, and I just wanted to take probably 2 minutes and give you an example. So here is a question. I need a volunteer to come up and say, okay, I'm going to play this game. Any volunteers here? Anyone? Yeah, fantastic. So I'm going to give you a puzzle. So the puzzle is going to be like this. So I'm going to give you 2 series, and I'm going to give you an example of another, and you got to guess the series, right? So something like that. So a square is equal to a triangle and a triangle. Got it? Simple. A square and a square is equal to a triangle and a triangle. Simple? Right. The question. A circle and a circle is equal to what?
Straight line.
Fantastic, semicircle. He understood the form immediately. It's a semicircle, right? 2 brackets, you're done. Fantastic, this is good. Here is the next one. 22, comma 22 is equal to what? Why not 2, 2? Why not 2, 2? Right? Am I communicating there? Why not 2, 2? The point I want to say here is, often what you think is going to be interpreted in a single way is possibly going to be interpreted in a very different way by people. And that's something which you need to go. Any product, now let me explain this further, right? With several examples. I would probably think of this, right? Often, I'll give you the problem of empathy, right? And we all think that, oh no, JK, that's not true. Whenever we know that when you can think on behalf of the customer, if I think this way about the customer, and if I can imagine the way customer thinks, I think I got it right. Okay, that's most often think so. It's not my thing, right? It's not my technology product or my way of doing business. It's about I've imagined how consumers do this. And I've always asked such entrepreneurs this question. Great. Imagine a customer buying a sandwich. Okay? Imagine a customer buying a sandwich. Imagine? Yeah. Good. Now tell me, who does this customer look like? You know what? 90% of the time the guy looks like you. Right? Not like the customer. Even when I have said additional things like, imagine a student in a canteen buying sandwich. And who's the student? Me, right? It's a projection, right? We always over-project our thoughts, right? There are umpteen number of ways in which our mind plays tricks. Our mind plays enormous amount of tricks. Here is another example, right, of empathy, right? When I asked this question, can you put yourself in the customer's shoe and imagine how this person would, what is this person's need, and can you draw the specifications of this product? Okay, so this is about what? 2 kinds of people who are empathetic and unempathetic. So we've done this exercise some time ago when I was in MIT, wanting to do exercises on how these biases impact product development, especially in product managers who are going to come out with some fantastic products. So one of the things was this: how does empathy make this difficult, right? Empathy about it. So most of us think, right, that if you're empathetic, if empathy means the ability to understand another person's needs versus an unempathetic guy, right? An unempathetic guy, very objective thinker, right? As opposed to empathy, we all think that empathetic guy would actually do a much better job in creating products and services. Just imagining. Answer is actually no. Having high empathy, in fact, if you actually said, oh, I feel for the customer, or some such words, I can imagine how the customer would be in these circumstances. And if you're thinking all these things while you're developing your entrepreneurial model, be careful. You're likely to be making fundamental mistakes. That fundamental mistake is what? That you're thinking of yourself, and the way you think about the product is what is the customer thinking. That's not actually true. So we asked this. So we got a set of bunch of people. We divided them into 2 groups. To one, we primed them for empathy. For example, we showed things, there's a way to make them more empathetic, right? And then before we made them all empathetic, we asked them to write specifications of a sandwich that will be sold in a student canteen, right? Specifications of sandwich to be sold in a student canteen. Half of them are primed to empathy and the other half is not primed to empathy. And there is objective data from the field, okay, that is students, as to what is the specification for the sandwich. That's also there. So we have one objective truth, then we have what? Another question. That is a primed, half set of primed to empathy, and another set. Now here is what it is. Surprisingly, the members of this research that were primed to empathy actually projected the market specifications of the sandwich to be more nearer what they thought was a sandwich. Okay, for instance, some of these guys were thought health was very important. Okay, they unfortunately removed the cheese out, put lettuce in. Okay, well, what was the objective data about the sandwich that kids like? Cheese. And what happens when this guy goes to the market with a lettuce-induced sandwich? It bombs in the market. And you know what this entrepreneur is saying? Stupid guys. Customers don't appreciate my product. Right? Have you heard this? Hundreds of times I hear entrepreneurs coming up and saying, that doesn't work. Right? So, warning. Being empathetic actually is bad. If you thought that I can put myself in the shoe of the customer, imagine, think, I will figure out a product. You're going to be far from truth. Right? That's something one has to be. Second is overconfidence. Right? So we got this another bunch of people, entrepreneurs. We wanted to know how much is this a problem? Overconfidence, right? There are several entrepreneurs who, without validating the product or the business model, they rush to the market. Why? Because one of the things that VCs want is what? Confidence. Boss, are you confident about the product? You got to be saying what? Yeah. Yes. I know, right? That's the fundamental thing you're going to say. Confidence. Yeah. Are you confident? Yeah. What does this confidence do to you? Confidence systematically erodes your decision-making skills. It does. In a very predictable way, it erodes it. How do we know confidence actually is bad? I'll tell you an example. Every exam that you took in the past, ask yourself, what was your assessment of the performance before the scores came out, and what was the assessment after actually the marks were coming up, right, on your score sheet? I know, right? Especially I do that also as a professor, right? So I usually ask the students, I say, how much are you going to get, right? They all have their wish list, but sometimes they also over-project just to make me look at the papers again. But the fact is this, right? So the fact is this, every time somebody assesses their own work or their own thing, they actually over-project, they're overconfident. They're confident of what it actually can do. The guy has attempted 20 questions, probably 10 is right out of 30. The guy says what? I'll get 15, 16. This is such a systematic error, right? That's such a systematic error that it is considered to be one of the biggest reasons for several things, including the wars in Iraq. Right? There's so many who are confident. Right? What were you confident about? Saddam Hussein was actually having linkages to Al-Qaeda. The guy was actually, saying everywhere, I hate Al-Qaeda, right? No. We have proof. You're confident. Then you said you're confident about what? Some of the biggest stock market bubbles. And who runs stock market bubbles? Entrepreneurs. Because it is they who come up and say, our future is glorious. It's going to make $150 million next month. And what does your analyst pick? That information. And what is he going to do? He's going to feed it to the market. And what is the market going to do? Eat it, right? And then the stock price goes up. What's the reality? Of course, we all face that every cycle. And the cycle of overconfidence is only accentuating with every bust, right? And we all keep seeing this king going up and up and up. For confidence, empathy, and I'm going to give you a third one, right? The inability to see evidence. This is one of the best things I've ever seen psychologically. The inability to see evidence. Evidence or counter evidence or the contrarian evidence, right? So here is one more example, okay? That is all internal. Just all think customer validation is so tough. Actually, I can tell you again, I want to repeat. The problems of customer validation is not about the lack of importance or about the processes. It's about you, right? So I'm spending so much time on this only because I have time and again seen that the problems are internal here. So here is one more example of validation insufficiency. So I'm going to play a game. Again, probably everyone could, but won't play this game. Only one can actually play it at one point in time. One fails, then the other person can take over. Is that fine? So I'm going to imagine a simple number series in my head. Okay? I'm going to imagine a simple number series in my head. My request to you is you have to guess the series. Guess the series, right? That's the first point. The second point is, for you to guess, I'm going to give you an example of the series in my head. I'm going to give that now. Okay? You have therefore one evidence in front of you to guess the series in my head. Okay? You can use that evidence to guess the series in my head. But before you're guessing, you can offer me as many series as you want and ask me, JK, does this example, besides what you were given, does this example fit the series in your head? I'll say yes or no. If you've sufficiently gotten the point right, you can guess. Right? Is that fine? Can we play this game? Great. So here is a simple game. I have a series in my head. I'm going to give you an example. Your job is to guess the series. Before you guess the series, you can offer as many examples as you want. I will say yes or no to it. Okay? Once you're sufficiently confident, you can guess. Is that fine? Yeah, I'm going to write it there, somewhere there. I don't know where to write, but okay. This is not so tough. You can imagine it. Okay? So it's not a problem. So I have a series in the head, and I need one volunteer to start the game. Who's going to start? Yep, you're going to start. That's fine. Thank you. What's your name? Rajkumar. Thank you very much. So, you mean to say I'm going to cheat? I know. Huh? Oh yes, I know. Don't worry, right? Don't worry. I have no intention to con you. And even if I did, it was good because you learned the lesson, right? So here is the example of the series in my head. The example is 2, 4, 6. That is 2, 4, 6 is the example of the series in my head. Your job is to guess the series in my head. Before you guess, you can suggest as many examples as you want. You can give example. Yeah, so, hold on. Who's playing? Who's playing? You want to play? Can he play? Okay, right, fine, thank you very much. Right. Does 1, 2, 3 fit? Yes, 1, 2, 3 fits the example in my head. People are getting very exasperated. Yes.
They got the answer. They got the clue.
Yeah, they got a clue. What's the series?
X and the 2x, the 2x into 2, like that. Right? No, plus 2 plus 1.
That was too mathematical. Yes.
This is typically taught by engineering, where you have a mathematical formula aligned to it. Whereas if you are simple, that's 2, 4, 6, 11.
We are simple guys. Let's talk.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it can go.
So what is a series, boss?
There's no series, it's just a number.
It's a positive number series.
Wait a minute. That's not done. Okay, let me crack this. Okay, let me give you this example. That's not what I said yes several times to some of the things. But I want you to come here, okay? I want to come here. This is a classic example that you should know and remember. Probably this is what is going on in your head, and I'm going to use him just for a few minutes to explain this, right? Phenomena. This is a very important thing. The moment I said 2, 4, 6, and incidentally, the series in my head was this. It's a set of rising positive integers. That's all. So it could have been, for example, something like 117, 2 billion, 17 billion. For all you care. That's all it is, right? So that's what is the series in my head. But let's look at what he did. He was clever on two counts, and I must give that. So by elimination, he eliminated 0 because it's not a positive number, and he eliminated negatives. Okay, he eliminated that. Congratulations to him. Not many people even get to near this. But then he went on to one more thing. He hypothesized the series to be an arithmetical progression with equal gaps. Okay, let me explain that. So he first said 5, 10, 15. What does it mean? 5 gap. Then he said 1, 2, 3. I said yes to it. He said 5, 7, 9, 11, and so on. So what is he actually doing? Can anybody guess what is he actually doing? No, it's not over processing. That's for normal processing. So yes, what was happening? No, he didn't remove the odds. In fact, what he was doing was this. He hypothesized it to be a series with equal gaps. And then he was giving example that fits what? His supposition, not mine. And he was finding evidences. Each time he was saying 7, 9, 11. I said yes. He said, wow. 5, 10, 15. He said, wow. That means he is what? Finding evidences that support what? His idea. Not mine. Not mine. Does it connect?
It connects, but I couldn't totally connect with you. Where exactly I lacked it. Because I'm
Okay.
getting right, all right.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how to fix that. I'll tell you how to fix that. That's very simple. That's not very different. That's not very difficult. I'll tell you how to do that. So what happened was, the reality is that it's a set of rising positive natural numbers or integers. But what happened was, I had a hypothesis of that it's a series with equal gaps. It's an arithmetical progression, if you wanted the technical mathematical name. So I'm analytics head, right? So I need to use those terms. So an arithmetical progression. And he's finding evidences from the cloud, okay, to support it. And what? He said, arithmetical progression, that's gone. It's not true, right? Now, how could he have gotten out of it? How could you have gotten systematically out of this? Now, I would have done this. Exactly. The moment I hypothesize it to be an arithmetical progression, so first immediate sense to most people is that it is 2, 4, 6 is a set of even numbers. That's the first thing that comes to your mind, isn't it? The first thing that comes to your mind is what? Is a set of even numbers. Immediately I will counter it by giving an odd number series. So the moment I said odd number 3, 5, 7, now you have two evidences. One, that it's neither even nor odd, and I would have said yes to both, remember, right? I would have said yes to this too, right? Now it's neither even nor odd. What is the common property between these two? It has equal gaps. Let me fix that. I would say 1, 17, 43, no combination. I would have said yes to it. Right? What is common between 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, 1, 17, 43? They are all positive. So give an evidence against it. Minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, I would have said no. Right? That means minus is gone. Eliminate 0, it's gone. What is left? What is left? Only positive rising, and they're all rising. Give an evidence against it. Minus 110. Minus 100, minus 90, right? Is rising, give it the other way around, reducing. I would have said no to it, right? So the moment you hypothesize something, it's your fundamental job to find evidences that are against your hypothesis. It's extremely important when you're in the market, assuming this is the set of consumers who will buy it. Please find evidences why they will not buy it. This is the medium that they're going to view. Find evidences why they're not going to view that. They are all going to be on the web and buying products. Okay, here is the most important damning evidence of how confirmatory buyers went and screwed several business models. And one company broke that and it made a lot of money. How many of you think that credit card is very convenient? On the net. On the net, credit card is convenient. How many of you think credit card is convenient? Well, I think a lot of you people know that. It just turns out it's not convenient. It just turns out it's not convenient. I was asked this question. Okay, so I'm in Bharat Matrimony. The options that we give to the consumer are two. Okay, you would either pay online, sir, or we will have somebody come and pick up cash at home. And you know, since how long we have been doing it? We have been doing it before Flipkart even thought of cash on delivery. We have been doing this for 9 years now. 9 years. And we made big money. And people were laughing at us. Why are you having such big collection force? And it's all our in-house collection agents, right? We ourselves were wondering. For a long time we were also, why is this happening? Why? The credit card, man, let's just take it, just put it, that's it, it's so convenient. Boss, it's convenient for who? It's convenient for me when the consumer does it, but not for the consumer. And I'll tell you why. You know, we asked, why is the problem? Actually, one consumer came up and said this. You know what, boss, you just called up, you said you're buying the product? Yeah. And you pay? Yeah. Online? No. Offline collection? Yes. He said, why? He says, look, it's such a bother. I got to open the laptop, right? I got to put a system password. Then I got to open the browser. Then I got to type on the browser www.bharatmatrimony.com. Then I got to click on the payment pay now page. Then I got to click that, then a form I had to fill. Then I got to click there, I got to enter another credit card details, expiry date, CVV number, blah, 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 blah. Then I got to click pay. Then it again going to ask one CV, then 3D by secure number. Then I'm going to say yes. Then I'm going to wait. Oh man, transaction successful. You know what's simple? This was 9 years ago. Even now it is the same problem.
100% right.
Even now there is the same problem.
So what percentage of your customers now take
60. Yes. 60% of our customers take cash on delivery. Sir, I can tell you no. 87% of my members on my site are self-registered, they're not parents, and they like to pay on cash. And you know what? Where do we pick cash? Do you know where we pick cash? Yeah. Office. Yeah. We stand outside, you know, most IT companies, Cognizant, TCS, we're inside. We are laughing. Why we're laughing? Because these guys are IT gigs. They come out and give cash. They could do it in the evening, right? No fee. No fee. In fact, we incentivize online because it is cheaper for us. It's actually, you know, it's convenient for us, not for him. They don't do that. So what I'm trying to say is that there is enough and more evidence. Yeah, sure. I'll take a question. Not now.
Yeah, we save again the money to the bank. So some people prefer getting by cash.
Now I know it's a pity paying back to the bank, but broadly I can tell you no. I don't think these are the things that run in their mind. The real reason is it's so cumbersome.
That's because of the population.
That's because of the wallet, number one. Number two, the biggest offtake of services now is in tier 3. Okay, where credit card penetration is low. That's the reason why it is happening. Not because of inherent. In your urban centers where credit card penetration is reasonably high, still cash on delivery is topping. Right? Just information that should work. the proportion is not falling because in urban. It's falling because of adding rural markets or tier 3 markets which don't have such high credit card penetration. That's number one. Number two, they also have huge problems in power, connectivity, and so on and so forth, especially mobile. So I want to tell you, mobile, most of the tier 2 is in 2G, right? They have huge issues on downloading payment page sites and paying. So for them, it is better to take cash on delivery or do a wallet. Okay, that is one of the reasons why it is doing. Another assumption. This is a very recent assumption, and we fell prey to it. Right? We thought our mobile. So this is a very good thing. How projection is so important, right? So we use the term VAP, and I'm sure many of you understand what a VAP is, right? VAP. VAP. Yeah. Right. Incidentally, it turns out that we use it on the customer too. Sir, are you using our website or a VAP site? The guy says, VAP site? What is VAP site? He doesn't understand VAP, right? So we have to tell them it's mobile website. And he understands mobile website. So the problem is that we thought our VAP sites were super good. Who designed it? Obviously our techies, right? So we just thought that VAP was a super good stuff, but nobody was using it, right? Nobody was using it. Everybody has gone in after the first attempt, nobody is coming back. Just figure out what, when we are here inside our office, we are looking at it, nothing is wrong. Apparently everything is fantastic. What's happening? If I had just asked a set of customers who are going to be in this, I would have not made this mistake. And I can tell you that is in spite of a lot of research that we do, we systematically make several mistakes. Yeah, I got a question. Yes, but you need to strip down a lot of features. For example, Snapdeal has figured out a way. It loads first the text, then it loads the heavy lifted items like images. I've not yet seen the IRCTC site, but
at that time, it takes out all other things, only the text is available, so that the speed goes on. The trick behind IRCTC is still runs on Fortran. It doesn't run on any .NET or Java. That's the reason you have so many lakh transactions that happen, and they are very happy with the same old legacy technology, and they are not migrated. They have never migrated. They have never migrated.
What you said is right. IRCTC users remove all the images, only text during peak. That is.
Yeah, they are rich. Yep, we load it later. Let them look at the text and we load it later. And we have, we have programs now which does not do heavy lifting of the photographs. It prunes it down, makes a lighter version of it. And the second and third photograph is loaded later. All that kind of thing we need to do, right?
Maybe a responsive website or
now we are enlightened. Now we are enlightened. We are doing several things now. Okay, one more psychological issue that I want to discuss before I move on to the process of customer validation is this. It's called an endowment effect. Now, endowment effect is nothing else but actually, if you have spent a lot of time with your product, with your business, you're going to fall in love with it more. And you're going to think this is going to work, right? And there's a beautiful experiment that was conducted on this. So a set of students were asked to make origami. You know what origami is? Origami is a Japanese art form where you can make cranes, birds, animals and all out of paper. And that's called an origami. Now, a bunch of subjects were asked to make origami. And they all made origami, and obviously since they're students, most of the origami will look pathetic, right? So the next part of that origami experiment was that they could put it up on a sale. And they had to write down how much they would expect people would pay for that, right? How much people would expect they would pay. They would all write down, this origami is worth 15 bucks. I think I'll settle for 16 bucks, and so on and so forth, right? On the other hand, we had a set of buyers who actually did not create any origami. Okay, they just came into the shop and they were wanting to buy this origami. We asked them, each of these origami, how they're willing to pay. Many of them refused to write number. But any who wrote that number was nowhere near the average expectation, okay, of the price. Now that's not much, right? That is just my creation versus others' expectation. It could have gone wrong. But what I'm trying to tell you is, the more efforts you put in it, the more will be your love for it, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. So we made the difficult condition by doing one more thing. In the first time, we had instructions on how to make origami, okay? How to make origami, there were instructions. This time, in the next round of experiments, we gave no instructions. That means making origami was going to be all the more difficult. It's going to take all the more longer time, and it's going to be, obviously, you guessed it, all the more uglier, right? But then, here is the beauty. They expected more money for it, right? It was not average 11 bucks. They wanted actually 28 bucks. Why? Because they spent more time on it. And they all were even asked, okay, this is the best question. They were even asked, how much do you like this origami? Oh, they all loved it. It's a collector's item, right? It's so beautiful. Why am I saying this? You're all entrepreneurs. You're all possibly subjected to all these kind of biases. Let me tell you what are all the 5-6 major biases I've discussed with you. First is projection, right? What you think is what other people are thinking, right? Second is empathy, right? That means, no, not a problem. If I can imagine the customer, I can put myself in their shoes, I got a product which is brilliant. That's the second bias. Third bias, overconfidence, right? I am confident that what I am doing will succeed in the market. Fourth bias, ignoring evidence, right, which I called as disconfirmatory evidence, right? Ignoring evidence that is aplenty in the market, and still you don't want to take that reason, that 2-4-6 example. And the last one I said was about endowment effect, right? The endowment effect, right? The problem of spending more time with your product, services, efforts of creation makes you fall all the more in love. What is the way to get out? The way to get out and go out and ask for customer validation is in fact to go and read up most times on these biases. Read them again and again and again on the net. There are enough journals and articles that tells you this. Please go up and read of them. This is the fundamental biggest problem with customer validation not going on, right? Now that I have told who is the biggest villain of customer validation, and probably you will now tame that villain, which is your something that goes inside your head. Let me just take 5 minutes telling you what is the process of customer validation. Yes.
Any practical example on ignoring evidence? And you gave an imaginary of 4-4-6-5.
Yeah.
On the business, any practical example on
Okay. I see that every day because I head analytics, I supply evidences to my business managers, but they systematically ignore it. They systematically ignore it. I can tell you, I always go back and tell them, right? Look, this evidence is meant to support, but they don't want to change, right? Change is the status quo biases and all those things. I can tell you offhand because some of them can be really blasphemous, but there are some public evidences too, right? For example, I could tell you a big public evidence, right? SMS, especially the bulk SMS that students bought. You remember? 10 bucks, some 30,000 messages. You know how students use them? Do you know how students use them? They're using like a chat. Every second it was being exchanged. Every telco could have figured out WhatsApp is coming down the corner. Right? They had the data, but they ignored it. They all the more found evidence why SMS has to be done. Right? Look at the amount of messages, the graph is going like that, right? It's just source going there. That's the evidence telcos wanted to see. What happened? One stroke, WhatsApp just pummeled the SMS market down. If you wanted evidence for market, evidence, ignoring evidences, this is it. Yes.
Particularly in rural India, there was an assumption that low-cost toilets is going to solve the open defecation problem. But they ignore the evidence that even rich rural people don't construct toilets.
Yeah, that's another very contemporary example. So, yeah, Swachh Bharat, I can see that. Right. Well, now coming to steps on customer validation, what is the simplest process of validation? As I said, you could validate your product, you could validate your business model, you could validate your marketing processes, you can validate anything. How do you do it, right? How to? Fundamental step, take care of your biases, acknowledge with humility that you can make mistakes. Second step is to actually figure out 30-40 customers to talk to. This is critical. This is critical. Now, if you are in a marketplace kind of model like just jobsdial.com or something, you got to validate over two sections. One is you got to validate from the people who are going to give you revenue, which is the job buyers, and also from the side of job seekers. Okay, the job buyers will tell you, matrimony.com is willing to empanel there. Give me leads, I'll give you leads per model. So much money is done. So you're setting up a site. But the guy who's actually wanting job is not on his place, right? So that could happen. So you have to first validate on both the sides. How does the validation happen? Get hold of about 20 to 30 members. Talk to them seriously. What do you talk? What are the questions that you need to talk to? I could give you 5 questions, broad questions, which you need to ask them. And you could ask them in very different languages, but the themes are this, okay? Number 1 question. What is the relative advantage? What I mean by relative advantage is this. Compared to what you are getting right now, how does this offering make a difference to you? That's extremely important. If that relative advantage is low, forget it. It's not going to fly up. It's not going to go in the market at all. You may be thinking it's a great model, but doesn't make any sense to anyone. What does it mean? If you told mobile phone as opposed to landline, it was a roaring hit. Correct? The relative advantage of a mobile phone is distinctly different from that of a landline. So that's the relative advantage. Relative advantage is always relative to something that you've always been enjoying. The way your steady quotient that was happening. This is the first question. You can ask this question in any different way, right? I was conducting a focus group meeting with consumers, 2 panels today morning before I'm arriving here. And we do at least about 10 of them each month. And I am telling you that we do too few, right? There is no end to number of times you can do this. I can tell you that's one of the reasons why we are 75% market share on an all India basis. And we have been doing this for several years. We are still not great. I can tell you, I still go and talk to members. Today one member was shredding Bharat Matrimony app to pieces. The customer team the product team that developed was sitting there. She had tears, and I could see she had tears. She thought she has done a great job, but she had tears. I had to go and tell the customer, tell her, don't worry, this is how it's going to be. But what he said was right. Listen to him. Then I took the number and I empaneled him as a product user specialist. So we have this group in our company where heavy users, dissenting users are all empaneled. And we ask them more, right? And they tell great stuff to us, right? And we improve the product. Yes, any more? Any more questions? Yes.
How many customers?
30, 40.
Now is it like town, city, or the state that's it? So,
It becomes difficult, I understand.
how?
How long?
How many?
Don't know. Everywhere. As I told you, there is no end to limit to doing customer validation. every opportunity, please use and test your model. If you're not yakking about your business model here, or about your product here, and taking validation honestly from everyone here, you lost an opportunity. Talk, 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 and keep asking questions. Is this right? Do you think this is what it is? Am I right? Is my assumptions right? Keep asking 10,000 people. Everybody use them as a customer validation problem. Everyone. Everyone. Yep. Heavy users. Heavy user is a person who uses our site probably 10 times in a day. No, we don't want brokers actually. We try to negotiate, ensure brokers are out of our model. Yeah. That's right. Exactly. You got the point. Obviously, you're right. Now we have to correct probably in acquisitions, or probably in presentations, or probably your algorithm has to work right, or probably we have to tell him, oh, you know what, probably this is how you need to look at the site. Somewhere something is a problem, right?
Bondato is all about Yahoo trying to have every answer in the same website. And then Google came, it's like Web2.co, you please stay in my site as many minutes as possible.
Yeah.
Web3.co is almost
Last question.
Contextual.
So when it comes to Bharat Matrimony, I don't want to go to your portal, I don't want to use your app, but you need information. So where are you in that particular?
Well, somebody is wanting to shut me off, right? But anyway, the answer is we are thinking about it. I don't think we have a clarity in the answer, right? So I will take that rather that question separately, because probably it's not directly on to customer validation, right? Yes. All the analytical tool that you can think of, we got that. Yep. IBM predictive analytics, big data, whatever you can think of, all that jazz we have up our sleeves. We use all those jargons also. In every meeting we'll do that, because it creates good branding, right? Yep.